Welcoming to the May edition of TM Editor's Office Hour. My name is Dr. Robert Li. I'm a professor and director of the School of Hotel and Tourism Management, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. I'm also an associate editor of Tourism Management. I'm covering Professor Xu today as she's traveling. I'm very glad to have you all here. There's no set agenda for today's session. This is simply a conversation with all of tourism management's current or potential contributors. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have, and I will do my best to share my thoughts. You can leave the questions in the chat box, or you can simply unmute yourself and turn on your camera, and so that we can have a real conversation. For the real tough questions, feel free to hold them until next month when Professor Xu is back. Okay, let's get started.
I have asked one question about how about the method TM now care about. What method does TM appreciate now?
What method? You mean research method?
Yes, of course.
Okay, sure. By appreciate, I guess what you mean is preferred, or you mean that
Yes.
Value? I think TM is very open to all different kinds of research methods. There could be some misperception that tourism management either favors any particular kinds of research method, quantitative or qualitative, or there's potentially some kind of a misperception that we have during certain time that only publish this or that. I'm glad that you asked this question so that we can debunk the myth. No, we don't necessarily favor or prefer any particular type of research method. Any method that is appropriate for the research question, we would consider them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, good afternoon. I guess Professor Li, I'm Tao. I just curious because I'm currently year 3, year 4 student in UK. So currently I work on the computation part. So I feel like my question is about AI. What do you think AI as like the research tool? How we like collaborate with AI? Especially recently I focused on the quant reports. So I found that that's quite interesting to collaborate with AI, especially for tourism research. I guess most of the quant part can be completed with SPSS, but I thought I can use AI to finish that as well. So what do you think this kind of the AI function in our quant research, data analyze part, and even cloud parts? What do you think this kind of phenomenon?
My apologies, but I couldn't hear your questions very clear. So let me try to repeat it. What I get is that you are asking about the potential application of AI in tourism management, tourism research, or you are asking about AI as a research subject?
As a research tool, like the supplement for the researchers.
As a research tool, like a method, like a
like a research assistant for a researcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a very relevant question. Clearly, what we are going through right now is a major. I think we are still in the middle, probably still in the early parts of major evolution of AI technology. So it is very interesting to observe how AI may impact our research. So in terms of your specific question, like using AI as a tool in our different aspects of our research operation, for example, like using AI as a tool for literature review, or using AI as an editing tool that can polish your language, polish your writing, correct some grammatic errors, or improve the overflow of your writing. There are many different kinds of ways to use AI. The bottom line is that, number one, that I think that you need to be transparent how you use AI as in the research process. I believe our publisher's position is that AI cannot be a co-author of your paper. So AI can help you, using your term, as a tool, but it cannot be the source of your idea. So completely relying on AI to generate research idea or generate the paper is not considered as a research ethical thing to do. But beyond that, utilizing AI for different kinds of data collection process or research or writing, to improve that, I think it's absolutely fine. And then beyond that, I think there are many new innovative usage of AI from, like recently that we're seeing increasing use of AI generated sample in some of it of the survey and experimental design, how we should interpret the results and how we should utilize these tools. I think the jury is still out, and we're observing and following the evolution, and it is going to be I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion topic for all of us. It's not just the editors who will arbitrarily make the decision or the publisher. It's going to be a consensus of the academic field. That's my 2 cents.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a founder question?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm a little curious about how editor or the journal the requirements for the AI things. Does the editor have some requirements for the how many text is generated by AI? Did journal has any requirements on that?
Sorry, I couldn't quite understand. How many what?
How many contents or text rate could be below that? Let's say like 30% can be generated by AI for an article, but just if the writer beyond that use the 50% be generated by AI, that's not allowed like that. Is any the text rate of AI things?
I'm not entirely clear what you're referring to in terms of the specific quantitative threshold. I assume you're talking about, for example, like if you are writing a paper, what is the percentage of the text can be generated by AI? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
That's, first of all, I'm not aware of any threshold. We have Dr. Wanfang Zhou, who is the editorial assistant of TM. Fang Zhou, are you aware of any specific quantitative requirements of certain percentage beyond or above or below that in terms of the AI usage?
Well, actually, currently we don't have this kind of strict limitation on this, but in a TM system, when a new submission comes, we can see exactly if the authors declare or don't declare about the AI generated something like that. So we recommend that authors please read our author guide, and there is a clear explanation on the Gen AI and AI declaration, AI usage on the submissions to tourism management, which I have already passed it to the chat box. Yes.
Thank you, Fang Zhou. Yeah, I think that to follow on what Fang Zhou mentioned, first of all, it is a little bit hard to quantify specifically what percent of the content is generated by the AI, because if let's say that we're using AI to polish your writing, this, in my personal view, is not unlike you are hiring a human editor to polish your writing, and which is not only not prohibited, but actually in some cases encouraged to improve your language quality. I don't see anything wrong with that in terms of just improving the writing, improving the language quality. But on the other hand, if you're talking about, like, let's say you prompt a question to AI and ask it to write the entire literary review for you, and then you're asking how much the content can be or can not be generated by AI. In that case, I suspect that the answer should be 0, that you should not just completely rely on AI for this kind of purpose. Do I make sense?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you.
I just want to ask a quick question, a follow-up question about the AI use in tourism management, but I'm focusing on the real use in practical issues. Now I'm working on 2 projects focusing on how AI tools can be applied in the real hotels. And now I have some data. But actually, from this point of view, I can only conduct some research on human resources management. I can only get access to the data about how the use of AI has changed the workplace relationship between the laborers and their supervisors. And now one of my works has been submitted to tourism management, and it's now under the 2nd round of revision. But during these 2 rounds of revision, one reviewer persists on saying that our research is not specific to the tourism management setting. It can be applied to any other service settings. So how can I solve this problem? Actually, my data is coming from the real hotel, and I have some 1 or 2 variables specific to tourism management issue, but actually maybe the whole framework can be applied to other service settings.
Thanks for the question. I will try not to comment on specific papers, specific circumstances or questions. It's going to be a little bit hard for us to, because, particularly if I haven't really been involved in any process of this paper, it will not be fair for me to make any comments. But I guess what you're trying to say is probably beyond the AI context, is something that a lot of authors and reviewers have been debating on and being confused about, is that what exactly do we mean by a tourism paper, a tourism-related question, right? So I think there is, in a way, this is at the heart of us being a field, tourism and tourism research, that what constitutes a real tourism question versus what some of the research projects which are conducted in tourism settings, hotel, theme park, or travel, and then claim they are tourism, but it's actually probably a general business or general geography or general sociology paper. So people have different views on this. For us, and I believe that the relevance issue is ultimately dependent on how it can contribute to tourism scholarship. Whether this is a question that tourism scholars as a community cares about, whether this is something that, because of the uniqueness, if there is any, of the tourism context, that make a general answer in other fields, sociology, business, whatever, that based on the general theory, general methods, the general findings or previous findings are not necessarily applicable in the tourism setting. There is a compelling reason for you to believe that in the tourism setting, that because of some of the specific features, that you have a reason to believe that, well, I'm questioning the whether the previous theory in those fields can be easily applicable to the tourism setting. And if you can make that argument, I think that is actually relevant to the tourism setting, and it's going to contribute to tourism scholarship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer. And I think that's exactly what the reviewer wants to hear from me. And thank you for your answer. You really give me a lot of enlightenment. Thank you.
Appreciate. Yeah, I think that the idea of what makes tourism unique, what makes the tourism setting, the tourism context unique, is a very, very interesting question that has been in a way kind of bothering tourism scholars for many decades. And hopefully that's we are collectively, we as a group making some progress on this. And I believe that there are scholars, me included, that who are trying to review some aspects of this, and try to explore some answers for that. And it's it's a very interesting question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I see a new question asked, do you think SPSS will be replaced by AI in the future? I'm not quite sure what you mean by SPSS will be replaced by AI. If you're talking about any specific software, it depends on which version, which format it's using. That's the software now, probably increasingly being kind of evolving into more sophisticated algorithm and more sophisticated way of handling data. And whether if we're only talking about SPSS of certain version, maybe yes, it will be replaced, whether it's by AI or by something else.
Sure, certainly there is no specific version of the SPSS, what I mean. And I just found that, like, for example, let's say sector analyze and cluster analyze, that's the two methods currently I'm using. So I found that if I use the AI to analyze and to apply such two methods in my research, I found that AI can do better than SPSS. So I can't help to start to think such a question. So as a tourism student or the researcher in the future, what should I do in such a like evaluation? Like you said, that we are in the middle of such an evaluation. What should I do? Should I learn something new, like R things, or just switch to the cloud part?
Well, I think that statistics and the quantitative methods in general being increasingly sophisticated because of all the tools that are available to us, including AI and including other things. So in a way that it's a fascinating time for us to learn all different kinds of new tools. To your question, that's whether you need to learn something, whether it's AI or something else. I think it depends on the ultimate purpose, that's what kind of scholar you want to become, what kind of research questions you want to address. And this will largely determine the kind of tools you're going to use. And of course, even if you are learning the tools in this, that we're facing this fast growing, very, very kind of an interesting and dynamic landscape of research methods, it is entirely possible that some of the methods that you use or the tools you use will be outdated pretty soon. So in a way that being AI literate, understanding some basic functions of AI and the application of AI would be necessary, and then, but the to what extent and how much you need to learn, as I mentioned, is probably largely dependent on the kind of your career objective and the kind of scholar, the type of scholar you want to become, and the kind of questions you want to address.
Yeah, Thank you, because I do feel like the method anxiety is caused by AI. But you're right, or the research, or the methods, or the approach depends on the research objective.
Hello. So I have a question about the articles noticed in Tourism Management Journal. So I have noticed that increasing number of articles in tourism management are employing a combination of multiple methods or multiple studies. So what would you consider an acceptable workload for article nowadays?
You mean what am I consider as an acceptable workload? What do you mean by that?
Workload, so yes, multiple studies or multiple methods. It shows you have done a lot of work
I understand.
on this article. Yeah.
Are you?
So
Go ahead.
yeah. So my question is about what do you think about this acceptable workload? Yeah. Because I see this trend.
Yeah. I think behind your question is the question that a lot of authors are asking us lately, like, how many, for example, like for those authors who are into using experimental designs, how many experiments are enough, if will 5 be sufficient, will 6 be sufficient, will 10 be sufficient? The answer is no, there's no arbitrary like quantity to think, oh gosh, it has to be like more than 4 or more than 5. Actually, several years ago, I was in another editors panel and with several marketing journals editors, including Journal of Consumer Research. Someone asked a similar question, and will that, because I believe the record at that point was that there are marketing papers being published with 34 experiments. So how many are considered as sufficient? How many are considered too many? I don't think there's a kind of again, there's no arbitrary number there, quantity there, nor is there any quantity or expectation on like, oh, it has to be mixed method. It has to be a combination of more than 3 methods. I don't think so. What we are actually increasingly concerned is that somehow, somewhat, at least to some authors, they interpret or they misinterpret that quantity equals quality. So the more studies I have, the merrier. The more studies I conduct, the better. No, it's not necessarily the truth, because in many cases, what we're seeing is a bunch of loosely organized studies being kind of remotely relevant to one topic, but somehow arbitrarily being packaged into one paper and claiming that I have conducted, I don't know, 8 studies all on this particular subject. But if you really look into that, these 8 studies are all over the place, and it's not telling a coherent story. There's no clear storyline, and there's no coherent research questions. And in those cases, having 8 or 10, I don't know, however many studies actually only hurt the quality of the paper and the readability of the paper. And another trend we're seeing is that, reviewers are challenging the authors to add more studies. And the authors always like, just kind of being a little bit submissive and say, okay, let's add another 2 studies, and let's add another 3. But again, this is, in some cases, these kinds of efforts will backfire. It makes the stories, the research stories being super complicated and confusing. And it doesn't answer a question in a compelling way. Rather, it becomes just an incredibly long, lengthy paper without a focus. So going back to your question, I don't think there is any kind of a specific number or kind of like, how much workload is considered as significant, substantive, or which one is considered inadequate. I think at the end of the day, you need to make sure that whatever studies you conduct and whatever research method you are using will help you to tell a coherent, compelling story. That's the bottom line. Hope I'm making sense.
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Thank you for the question.
So that's the case, but I strongly agree with your point. So telling a coherent story is very important. But I seldom see articles nowadays in tourism management or some top of these journals, tourism papers. They just use a single method to do the study. Sometimes this story is simple and it is innovative and it looks very great, but I seldom see people were using a single method to answer these questions. They will use multiple study or multiple methods. That makes the article actually looks very complex. So I just have this question. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I think first of all, it is a good thing to see that authors are increasingly utilizing different kinds of research methods and multiple studies try to answer one research question, for the purpose of triangulation, for the purpose of robustness check, for the purpose of improving the rigor of their study. So this is in itself is not a bad thing. What I'm trying to say is that single study is not necessarily inferior. Multiple studies is not necessarily superior. Just because you're using many different kinds of methods doesn't mean that the paper will be automatically considered as better. And just because the paper is using one study or one method, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not good. Of course, the general trends in many different disciplines of science, you are seeing that we are increasingly utilizing different tools and different perspectives to think about to try to answer one single question. I think this is overall a healthy development, but it's, what we are worrying about is that it becomes a kind of a fad that everybody is just trying to just dump a lot of studies into one paper and to claim it's a mixed method paper. I think that is not something that we are encouraging. But again, for authors who are utilizing mixed methods and multiple studies, please revisit your storyline and ask yourself, what is the rationale behind you utilize those methods and those studies? Is that simply because you're trying to show off the efforts you are making, or is that because all these are absolutely necessary tools and steps to answer your research questions? I think that is something that we all need to think about.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer.
No problem, no problem. So I'm seeing.
Can I have
oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Can I have the last question? So, what type of articles are currently preferred by tourism management journal?
What kind of articles are what?
For example, what type of articles are currently preferred by tourism, those with strong theoretical implications or more practically significant?
Well, I think ideally we want all. We want both. So in a way that we are looking for papers that are of good theoretical foundation, that is novel, that is interesting, that are telling very interesting, asking important and relevant questions and telling an interesting story. And also remember that our name shows that we are a journal for management. There has to be some managerial relevance, managerial implications. So ideally, we're looking for papers that are strong in all these things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Thing. Okay, so I'm seeing some questions in the chat. Oh, okay, the first question is from Tencent live stream. It is common that researcher can conduct experimental methods to test the tourist intention of ChatGPT. Tourist intention of ChatGPT. I'm not quite sure what it means. Could you provide any ideas on using big data methods to explore issues regarding using ChatGPT to generate travel plans? I don't. I actually think that it is. I'm here to learn from everybody about your research idea, rather than just me providing any kind of ideas on specifically how to use ChatGPT to generate travel plans or otherwise. I think that's that the general idea here is that if this is a new context requiring new theory or new methods to study, then it becomes an interesting paper. If this is just like what we have seen in several past occasions, that we are seeing that, for example, when the internet first started emerging, and then everybody asked the same question, same set of questions from offline to online. And then when social media came, then everybody asked the same question from, what have been the questions that have been answered in offline settings and online settings, and now put it into a social media context. In a way, those are basically old wine, but put it into new bottles. Those are the things that we're a little bit concerned. When you're putting those into this, whether it's ChatGPT to generate travel plans or other contexts, what's fundamentally the new question you are trying to answer? What kind of a new theoretical mechanism you're looking for? So I hope that's answer at least part of your question. Do you have any advice on AI-assisted data analysis? Again, I think as we mentioned, we discussed earlier, that the jury is still out in coming up with a perfectly updated and all-inclusive kind of guidance on specifically how to use AI-assisted data analysis. I think that it's very important for us to make sure that we are going to be following theoretical, the research ethical guidelines. This is, we have already discussed this. The next question is, as per the author guidelines, all papers published should contribute to theoretical and/or methodological advancement. What kind of theoretical contribution do you feel can be sufficient to serve as a theoretical advancement? Many thanks. This is a tough question, isn't it? We got a lot of authors asking this. What exactly do we mean by theoretical contribution? And what kind of theoretical contribution do would be considered as sufficient? Again, I think this is a number one, that this takes very rigorous and strong research training for all of us to assess and determine what is considered as value-added theoretical contribution. You can go back all the way to Wetton's classic paper on what is considered as value-added theoretical contribution, where he outlines a number of criteria. And I think this is an evolving thing, that what do we mean by theoretical contribution? In a way, and I hate to say that, this is in the eyes of the beholder. In a way, it is up to the authors to make their own argument of what kind of theoretical contribution they are attempting to make and what they have successfully made. As I mentioned earlier, that in many cases, what we are seeing is that, this theory has been tested in context 1, and now we try to test it in context 2. That may not be considered as a theoretical contribution, just replicating that into a different context. But if you can make a compelling argument that the context 2 is actually substantively different from context 1, and how and why it is unique and different, and how and why it is important in the tourism setting, and then you probably can make a theoretical contribution in that sense. Sometimes it can be, expanding the boundary of the theory. In other cases, it is possible that you are indeed raising a new kind of theoretical question and potentially developing a new theoretical model. So theoretical contribution can vary in very different forms. And I think it's important for us as the authors to make an argument and make a compelling case for our theoretical contribution. And in what sense you're contributing to either the general theory that you're utilizing or to the specific theoretical application in the tourism setting. And then it is also up to all us, who are both serving, most of us are both serving as authors and reviewers, to collectively kind of define what we mean by theoretical contribution. So in a way that you can see that in the past several decades, tourism scholarship has evolved substantially. And in that sense, that what we mean by theoretical contribution also evolves in this process. So it's a little bit hard to say that, oh, this is considered as a theoretical contribution. That is not. So I hope I'm partly answering your question. Okay, so the question is, any advice on qualitative data analysis, AI assisted? I don't think there is, any specific advice on this. I think this, as long as you are following the research ethical guideline and you are utilizing the AI assisted tools in the data analysis, and try to make sure that your method is rigorous and also intersubjectively replicable. I think these are all good indicators of high quality analysis. So specifically how and to what extent you're using AI assisted tools in this process, I think it's probably, we need to look into different specific cases and questions to be able to really answer this in a meaningful way. Okay.
Hi, Professor Lee.
Hi, yes.
I'd like to ask a question about what topics in the current hotel and tourism field are worthy of attention. I'm currently facing the difficulties of writing a thesis, and I'm often considered to lack innovation. Do you have any suggestions for young researchers on finding good thesis writing topics? How should we find a valuable and meaningful writing topic? When I was at school, we often looked for topics in papers, but I felt that some studies had no practical significance, and I couldn't raise my interest in writing papers. So what do you think is the way to find a valuable research topic? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. This is $1 million question that we are all looking for answers. Like, what exactly is an interesting, good research question, isn't it? I think the bottom line for this is this needs to be a question that is interesting to yourself. Okay, so you're kind of, you mentioned the idea of like getting the ideas from papers. I assume that you're talking about either we generate research ideas inductively or deductively. Yes, indeed, that it's a convenient way for us to generate research questions from the literature and saying that, oh, I have found a theoretical gap, and so let me study this. In many cases, it could be very important questions, but in the past there are some very classic papers talking about this gap spotting papers versus pass setting papers. So essentially the idea is that the real important questions may or may not just purely be generated from the literature. It is entirely possible the very compelling, interesting research questions are coming from the phenomena, coming from your own either living or working experiences. And you find an academic way and try to conceptualize it and try to view the question, analyze the question from 30,000 feet above and develop some ideas and theories behind it and making it a very interesting topic. And that would be equally, if not more important than those ideas generated from purely from the literature. So I don't think there is a one way to generate research questions or generate good research questions. But as I mentioned, I think it's very, very important to ask yourself whether this is something that you are interested in. And on top of that, I also want to say another thing that, in many cases, I'm seeing that the audience, lots of you are students probably, or junior scholars who may not have so much gray hair as we are. But we are in a very different media and technological and environment, and many other things are also different these days. In many cases, we are all learning in the same way. So whatever experience brought us, the little bit more experience we have than our students and our junior scholars may not be that valuable. In a way, facing all this new phenomena, you all of you are kind of in the same kind of a starting line as us. And we are facing the new questions together, and in a way that you are probably more sensitive, more kind of engaged in this new setting, new phenomena, and new questions. And it is entirely possible that you can ask many more very interesting and important questions than the earlier generations of scholars. So be confident. I think that's very important. So the next question is, when developing a new concept, focus on concept, skill development, or variable relationship testing. May I ask whoever asked this question to elaborate a little bit what exactly you're asking? I guess what you are trying to say is that when we are developing a new concept, whether the focus should be on the concept or skill development itself or its relationship with other relevant constructs, like in the nomological network. Okay, I would just assume that my interpretation is right. It depends on what do you mean by when developing a new concept, right? So if you are developing a concept and that is non-existent in the past, and you are truly bringing a new concept that the past literature hasn't really discussed, and then you're trying to not only raise this, kind of propose this new concept, but also develop skill, then I think that the first and foremost that the focus should be on the concept itself, what it means, how you define it, and if you are trying to develop skills about it, then what is the dimensions, what it kind of, different aspects that it contains. Okay, all these things are relevant. But if you are eventually, based on this, these are the first step which will set the foundation for this argument. Like, this is a new concept, this is my definition, this is how I conceptualize its structure, however many dimensions it contains. But beyond that, you also need to talk about its relationship with other, as you mentioned, other variables, or I would probably say that other constructs, right? And then it's testing its relationship and test its position in the knowledgeable network and try to identify this relationship. And that can help you to answer the bigger question of what exactly this proposing this concept will contribute to. A relevant question to this is, actually, we have seen lots of scale development papers being submitted to tourism management. And I would recommend all the authors to carefully read the TM's guideline on this. TM doesn't publish pure scale development papers. But if you develop a scale, you need to put it into the larger context, and what is the relationship, what its relationship with other constructs are, and how this scale that you developed will contribute to the research questions you ask. So in other words, purely developing a scale for the sake of scale development is, in a way, a mechanical process that doesn't answer the full, show the big picture, and doesn't answer the full question. And we would encourage, in that sense, we would encourage everybody to not only focusing on the conceptual development, scale development, but also answering the questions of its relationship with other constructs. Okay, I've been reminded that we only have about 7 minutes left for this session. So if you have any questions, I think we may be able to accommodate 1 or 2 questions, depending on the kind of questions we are. So anyway, going back to that scale development question, that please make sure that you fully read and understand the author guideline. So there's the question, put it into bigger context for triangulation or contribute theory. I'm not entirely sure. I guess this is a comment, probably not a question.
Sorry for the interrupt. I just want to follow the previous question, because you talked about developments of scale, such a research journal. So I just wondered, so when we try to put the scale, a new scale, into the bigger context, the end for that is for translation or contribute to theory. Sorry for the interrupt again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. That's, if you read our guideline, it said that scale development is viewed as part of a study rather than the entire study. The paper should contribute to theoretical methodological advancement. So that is, again, developing scale for the sake of developing a scale is not sufficient. Okay, if we don't have other questions, I would like to thank everyone again for being here. And thank you for your contribution to tourism and support to tourism management. We look forward to receiving your papers, receiving your reviews, and we also would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have after the session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.